What it is, YouTube? It's your boy Nixie coming back with another bullseye of a tutorial here today on the channel. I wanted to show y'all how y'all can create a little bit of depth inside of y'all mixes and create some really dope tricks, okay? So if you guys do like this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and drop more video suggestions down below. So this is actually, a part of a full course that I made, which is the Sound Toys course, where I broke down all these gems about how to mix a kick, bass, ad-libs, everything super in-depth, like how people be saying, Nick, I want you to go even more in-depth on, on YouTube and everything like that. So, I will drop the link down below if y'all want to check it out. But let's get to these sauce right now. Let's get to these gems. So, I want to just play the ad-libs for y'all first. It was a situation in this mix where everything was really feeling good. Everything was bumping and grooving down the middle, and I wanted to create a little bit of depth, and I want to show y'all how I like to create depth using ad-libs. So let's listen.
Yeah, 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 yes. Oh, 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 oh.
So a pretty basic chain. I just wrote off a little bit of top and bottom. And I think a lot of the times people forget that using EQ and compression is two ways that you could create distance inside of your mix. For example, when you roll off low end, that makes you perceive things by it being a little bit back. Also, the transient response of such things. Like, for example, when you hear like, higher transients from footsteps, right? That makes you think that something is getting closer to you. And the lower that you hear the footsteps, it makes you think that something is farther to you, like the clacking of somebody's shoes on the ground. So those are two very powerful tools. Not rolling off mud and taming peaks. Now, those are two very powerful tools that you can use to create a little bit of separation in your mix, front to back. I always think about mixing like I'm like Lewis, like Lewis and Clark and Sacagawea, you feel me? Like them, they was explorers and stuff like that, right? So it was a situation when them pioneers like Marco Polo, Lewis and Clark and them, when they used to be, exploring the world, you feel me, before the whole map was already laid out, sometimes they would get lost. They would look at the stars. They would look at the constellations, you feel me, up in the moon and everything like that, because that would be a point of reference to them to tell them what direction they're going in, type of situation, right? So as an engineer, that's something that's very important for you to do in the mix. You got to give the listener a point of direction. You got to think about a point, like a relative point of direction. How can I say? A situation where you don't know what north is without knowing what south is. If nothing as south existed, you would just call it that way. You feel me? You have a point of reference. You wouldn't know what west is without knowing what east is. You feel me? You wouldn't know what left is without right. It would just be that side. You feel me? So you have a point of reference to know, okay, this way is that way is this way. And as an engineer, you got to establish that. When it comes to something like depth, I like to use something like a panner, right? And a panning is a very underrated way of, kind of creating that image of the whole mix, right? Back in the days when people wanted to create that stereo image, they had microphone placement. They had the ribbon mics and the overhead mics, depending on what type of microphone they was using and the frequency response. That will kind of create the image of the choir that's singing, the gospel choir, or the symphony with everybody playing the violins. That will create the image, the microphones they was using, right? So the frequencies playing to that bit too. But with the panning, I wanted to make these ad-libs have a little bit of depth in it. So a part of that was getting that strong mid channel. My kick, my bass, everything was thumping right down the middle. It felt really good, you feel me? So in order to create width in your mix, you gotta have like kind of like the mid channel and the vocal doing this, you feel me? Like bring the listener in, because once you bring the listener in a little bit closer, right? And then you push them back, they'll be like, whoa, this whole like house in front of me is huge. Like once you bring somebody into the door of your house and then they start looking at the roof, they really start to get an idea of how big the house is or the mix. So that's what you want to do. So I use the panner bit, all right? And I went through 3 panners. So let's look at this dope panner, the Sound Toys Pan Man, all right? Pan Man. All right. And you have a couple different settings, which is the width, which is kind of how wide do you want it to go. You also have the offset, which it kind of determines the movement. And you have a bunch of different types of rhythmic moves. So let's go over this first type of pan, man, how that affects it, right? And I like to use this on ad-libs because it's going to affect the reverb, because the signal, the ad-lib is already moving as it's going into the reverb. That's going to make my reverb fuck around and move a little too.
Yeah, 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 yes. Oh,
So a really dope effect that you guys can use to give a little bit of wobble, wiggle, 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 wiggle to them ad libs. You feel me? Get them wiggling around like a worm in the dirt, getting them wiggling around a little bit. And that's a great point of reference, because once you got your lead vocal really sitting solid and really filling up the living room, then you can say, okay, let's go to the back room. Let me show you the backyard. Okay, let me show you the kitchen. Now you can start being that navigator, that tour guide. Oh, next thing after that, as I tried to use this dope, I might have to buy this one. I'm telling myself, okay, last plugin, but I might have to buy this one too. This was the Cyclosonic Panner, right? And this is a really dope panner because it starts to bring in a couple more features, a couple of different patterns. I actually think that the Pan Man might be related to this plugin. I'm not sure if they're cousins or they're brothers, but I know the Pan Man is modeling a lot of throwback analog pannering machines and stuff like that. So this was another dope one as well. You had different shapes, different rates that sync with the tempo. And I like how you got different pan modes that can go from side to side and all around. So I tried this one out as well. And let's see which one fits.
Yeah, 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 yes. Oh, 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 yeah, 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 yes. Oh, 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 yeah, 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 yes.
Okay, that's dope too. That's dope too. It's a situation when you're using a panner, or also if you're gonna actually manually pan your ad libs, you kind of want to think about the signal that's going into it, like the rate, right? So the rate is kind of like how fast is the panner moving and doing all the panning. You know, sometimes you might be in a situation where you manually panning, you might pan one thing, one ad lib 30 to the side, and you might want to pan the next one 67. But it depends on how frequently the ad libs are coming around and stuff like that. So this was another dope panner that I feel like, okay, it's starting to feel a little bit like Hurricane Katrina. It started to feel a little bit like Chef Boyardee whipping the pot with the right wrist. You kind of hear why it's called the cyclosonic, because it's kind of doing this little cycling type of effect, this hurricane type of effect, this, you know, flushing the toilet, watching the shit go down type of effect. But I wasn't really liking that though. But the last plugin that I did come to that I did like a lot, that I feel like creates a lot of depth in the mix, and that you guys have a lot that y'all might be sleeping on it, is the mono mod. So with the mono mod, this is a really dope plugin right here, because what you can do on the going off the default preset like this is you can take this and you can turn this all the way around, and it will kind of give the effect that the ad libs are legit behind you. I don't know what it's doing, but it has a really dope effect where it can literally put stuff behind you. So EQ and compression can push stuff back. But just because you were in front of me and I pushed you back with my hands, that don't mean that you behind me. You feel me? So that's very two different things. I rolled off a little low end, it sent something a little bit back, right? I took off the transient off of a vocal or kick, you know, a fast attack. It kind of pushed it back a little bit. But just because I push you back, that don't mean you behind me. You feel me? So that's why the mono mod is really dope, because if you just take this and you spin it around, it could put it behind you. And also the range, make sure you reduce the range too.
Yeah, 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 yes. Oh, 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 yeah, 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 yes. Oh, 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 yeah, 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 yes. Oh, 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 yeah, yeah, yeah. It's over. It's over.
So I don't know what it is, but when you use this little trick right here on the mono mod, it's really dope because it legit makes it feels like the ad libs are kind of back. I don't know what type of psychoacoustic effect it's doing or whatever, but I think you guys should really try out that mono mod plugin. It's a very cheap plugin and most of y'all got it. Maybe you can use that as a weird type of effect to create a little bit more depth, because like, I guess it's rotating the signal or doing like a phase flip or something like that. I'm not sure what it's doing, but yeah, this is kind of like a way that I like to create depth in my mixes, you know. different type of ways of giving them that point of reference, different types of ways of showing them what the front door is and then showing them what the backyard is. You feel me? So the listener has a complete sense of the mix that I'm building up, which is kind of like the house, you know? So I just want to say thanks a lot for being a great part of my YouTube family. Try out these penning tricks and let me know how it makes you feel. You know, these plugins, you know, do you feel like they're adding a lot of more space to your ad libs and stuff like that? So I just want to say thanks a lot for being a great part of my YouTube family. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And also don't forget to check out the Sound Toys course down below. I'm going to drop the link if you guys are interested. So I just want to say thanks a lot. Appreciate y'all now. Peace.